Our panel is your panel. It's not language panel discussions in which I, the moderator from the BBC, runs the panel. These are your questions. I've got a nice list of questions supplied by people in the audience. And halfway through, I'm going to throw the ball back into your court. So please listen actively, have your pens at the ready. If you disagree with anything that Simon or Ian or Gardner or Michelle say, jot it down because I want to hear from you. Is there a best policy for globally mobile employees? Should you tax equalise, freeze exercise during assignment, hypothetical stock option exercise? What do you reckon?
The challenge that we're often presented with is that if indeed it's personal income and therefore you're not going to help me in any sense with any higher taxes and so forth, two things arise. One is a potential double taxation, whereby depending which countries are involved, you may have been taxed at grant of the option and then again at exercise, and that is something that generally speaking in the past Unilever has stepped in and ensured that there is some degree of protection in that respect.
So just for one-off instances when there is that double taxation?
It doesn't happen that frequently, but when it does, it's widely perceived as something that is just generally unfair, and therefore somebody has to step in.
Have you made compensation in those situations where there's been this double tax?
Well, we never. I don't think I've been there yet, but I don't think we've ever really encountered it, and we wouldn't.
Okay.
Because I think people have the choice over a period of 10 years. And the other point I'd like to make is that typically grants are made every year. So while you may be in a difficult situation for one grant, you've probably got 2, 3, 4 or 5 more that will be exercised in another time, in another location, particularly in our case where people are moving quite regularly.
And many different views there, so I think it was really worth getting everybody to discuss that. I'm going to come into the audience now and ask you to address the panel. If there's a particular person you'd like to ask the question to, obviously do. Otherwise, I'm just going to bounce it around the panel.
Simon, can you just tell me what you do with regard to Social Security when you're moving around so much?
Easy answer is nothing. Again, it's a case of, it's an individual situation, an individual issue. We provide support services for people to sort out their affairs, but we don't really do anything from a social security perspective. Remember, we don't really have a home and host philosophy. People move.
Do we need to commission research to actually quantify it? Yes, you're a global talent, you're a global player, and it's good for your career, and we can quantify it. What do you reckon? Who's in favour of commissioning this research? Who thinks it would be a good idea?
Everybody who put their hand up is Deloitte.
Yeah, they say there's a part of
it's in the consultant's interest, yes. And who thinks, well, you know what, that's not going to swing it, it's just another expensive item for us. Yeah, so there are a few sceptical voices out there, but I think most people, maybe because of the Deloitte factor is tilted, think it would be a good idea to have some more numbers on this to be able to quantify it a bit more.
What impact do you think the global recession has had on global mobility?
From an individual's point of view, I think again that there is still a bit of a hangover from the idea that there's a kind of, we can weather the storm, as it were, in terms of let's do this for 3 or 4 years, it's a great opportunity for us, let's go do it now. And again, that has sort of led to, I'd suggest, a slight easing of some of the pressure we get around in people trying to negotiate their position and so forth.
Final word to Gardner.
Well, despite retrenchments, there's probably an uptick in the number of people crossing borders to work. The volumes always go up in terms of activity, in terms of absolute numbers, but not necessarily the same sort of demographics of mobility because of cost constraints. But people, you can't move your business to where your people are. It's easier and faster and more competitive to move your people where the business opportunities are. And the business opportunities suddenly were somewhere else. Companies mobilized very quickly to deploy people to capture those opportunities. It was a good 2 years for mobility in terms of being critically important to the business strategy in a global world.
I'm going to say thank you to our panel for a very lively discussion. I hope they've gone some way to answering your questions. Simon Nash from Replicating Benhisa, Ian Cloak from Unilever, Gardner Heppel from you know where, and Michelle Jean from Page. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a great and very engaged audience. I'm going to hand you back now to Ladena.